Okay, here we go. All right. So it's live. I think I got everything set up the right way, uh, or at least halfway set up the right way. This is one of those type of things where I've been putting it off for a while, and then I said, well, it don't have to be perfect. Let me at least get started. I'm trying to do something. So this video is pertaining to Birch Creek, the land that we have in Birch Creek in regards to the Pryor family. So my name is DeWan. My grandmother is Uella Pryor, right? My dad is George. I'm his middle son. So, hello family. To my immediate family, I've been telling them I want to make this video because I've been looking up different genealogy information. I could use a lot of help from the immediate family and also from the extended family. This video can be lengthy because I got a lot of information that I want to cover. So if this is the type of stuff that you're into, this type of thing that you're into, you can watch the video on your own time. You can pause it and come back to it. You can figure out in regards to some of the information that I've uncovered where I might be making some mistakes. You can help me connect some of these dots. Because this information that I'm looking into, it not only affects my branch of the Pryor family or the Wooten family, it could really affect a lot of people in Birch Creek. This is pertaining to the individual land. I'm gonna be tracing different types of land deeds. I'm gonna be tracing, and eventually it lead me to tracing genealogy because it's all connected. I will say that I might say some things, or I might uncover some things that people say, well, that don't sound right, or that don't, that's not what I heard, and that's good because I want to know the word of mouth story behind the information. I'm not from Birch Creek. I'm from Dallas. I'm born and raised in Dallas, but every summer, a lot of summers, we would go out and spend time in Birch Creek. I'm very proud of my Birch Creek family. And I always tell my wife, I always talk to them about how much fun we used to have out there going back and forth and, different things like that. So if I say something that's you disagree with, I want you to say, if you see me and we get a chance to chit chat about it, I want you to say, family, I love you, but I disagree with this. I love you, but I disagree with that because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I'm respectful in this because that's how I was taught and that's how I was raised. So if I'm representing Uella, my grandmama, who I love dearly, she always made sure all her grandkids, we felt love. She pumped us full of confidence. She always made us understand. She would talk to us about different things. But I'm like this. I'm a little kid, so I'm kind of barely listening. And I'm definitely barely understanding who she talking about and different things like that. But as I got older, we get grown. And now we have the opportunity and it's more information available that we can go look into. So I kind of got drawn into looking into this type of stuff. So that's why I have everything set up perfectly. I don't really do, videos or podcasts, nothing like that. But this is the opportunity for me to get into it, for me to share the information that I've come across so that, we can get some things answered. Because it's not necessarily exactly the way that I heard or the way that it was told to me. But me respecting my elders, I'm always going to put, if the elders told me this and they told me that, I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to take heed to that. But I'm also going to ask different questions because I'm saying, all right, we're looking at different records and they say different things. So I got kind of like a presentation set up. It's not perfect because it's just kind of like one thing led to another, and I'm looking at this and I start looking at that, so it's gonna kind of be I organize the best I can, but it's a very good chance that I might click on a link here and there and it's not put together perfectly because I never thought that I was gonna even put together a presentation like this. So let's see what I can pull up and make sure everything is working, everything's recording. Okay, I think so. I hope so. All right. So here we go. So let me start with this, and then I get to all this different information. I got a whole spreadsheet of links and things like that that I put together. But so let's start with this. Um, the origins of my curiosity of what even made me start to look into this type of information. All right, so basically, I've been getting into real estate this year, the past year, the year before that. I learned all these different things. I decided that I'm gonna try my hand in real estate investing, and things like that. So as I'm doing that, and I'm sure I'm probably gonna have some family that do some of these things similarly, so they'll be able to attest to what I'm saying. When you're looking into real estate, you calling a lot of people, you get a lot of no's. You're trying to flip houses, you're trying to flip land, but in order to successfully flip it, you have to learn how to do your due diligence or your research. And part of doing the due diligence and research is you're looking at a lot of different titles, you're looking at deeds, you're looking at affidavit of heirship and things like that. So you're tracking, who do I call about this property? Who owns it? Oh, well, where did they get it from? Oh, well, where did they get it from? And back and forth. And as I'm doing this and I'm researching it, I'm able to go all the way back very far in these deed transfers. And I never even imagined how far back you can actually go in regards to land transfer and property transfer, but it makes sense because the city, the town, the county, wherever you are, they have to be able to track the land so that they can track the taxes. So it's really about money. Somebody has to own everything, or else the city could own it. But if a person owns anything, they track that very closely from paperwork, and it goes back. It basically goes back all the way to the conception of whatever that county is. It's not even a county until they start to put the paperwork together. So we talking about early 1900s. We talking about the 1800s in a lot of cases. And just for instance, the property that I was dealing with, that I am dealing with now, is in Altamesa, or this is in Oak Cliff, and I was able to track the properties that I'm looking at all the way back to when Altamesa was like a cow pasture or something like that. And then this guy sold it to this guy, and then they started building this and that on it. So when I discovered that I could do that strictly from real estate, okay, I started to look into some things on my mother's side of the family. And so on my mom's side of the family, we got links in Longview, we in Marshall and Jefferson. And there's a lot of oil rigs and stuff like that out there. So for my grandmother purposes, she said, hey, look into this for me, because it was in regards to different taxes that need to be paid on different properties of land that was passed down. So I did, and I started to look into it, and it started to get me acquainted with calling the county clerk office and stuff like that. And visiting, sometimes you got to visit the county clerk office and have them go way in the back and pull out these different deeds so you can figure out who owned what and how to solve a lot of different problems on the real estate end. All right, so as I'm doing that, again, I'm always very proud of Birch Creek. I know where my people come from, and I've heard the stories all the time about how we got this land from this and that, because we're still in possession of it to this day, which is a beautiful thing, because a lot of people can't say that, but to this day we're still in possession of this land. So I said, well, it'll be cool for me to go look back and go and study so I can see if what I've heard matches up with what's on the deeds and records, because now I'm aware that everything is recorded and everything has to have some type of paper trail to it. All right, so I'm already knowing from the story, and one thing that has corroborated the story is going to be the book called Out of the Darkness, the Black Faces of Birch Creek. So let's look at this book, and let's see what the story that I've been going off of. And I can show you a picture of the book. Okay. And I'm just screen recording right now. This is pretty much the best I could do at the time. So this is the book, Out of the Darkness, the Black Faces of Hopkins County. And I have a physical copy of it. Matter of fact, I took the picture of the book because I keep this book with me, because this is what I go off of when I'm talking to my wife. and I tell them about my family, I pull out this book and say, look, they wrote something about my family here, our family, and I'm going off this book all throughout, this is what I know for my family to come from. Very proud of it. So if we're looking at the particular part of this book that pertains to my family, which is going to be the Pryor family, but even before the Pryor family, it'd be the Wynn family. George Wynn is basically the focal point of this whole presentation, and it might get long, and that's okay. I did it this way so that you never know over time. I wanted to record it because in the future, technology might enhance, and then people will be able to come back and pick up where I'm leaving off right now. Okay, so the Pryors of Birch Creek, and we can focus right here because this is basically the story that I know for my family, or for George Wynn, which would be an ancestor of mine, and this is who we have gotten at least our plot of land from. All right, so I'll read it. Old George Wynn was a white land and slave owner, and he and his half Indian, half black slave girl had 3 children, George, Orange, and Dozier. Old George provided for these mulatto children when the slaves were emancipated. These children received 60 acres of land each from him, and the land is still owned by members of the family. The land that he deeded to his children formed the nucleus of Birch Creek, Pleasant Hill community. Okay. His son, George, so this is the George Wynn that we are following here today, took his 60 acres and he became a very successful farmer. He married his wife, Nettie, and they planted fruit orchards, cotton, and other crops, in addition to raising all forms of farm livestock. George Wynn was well respected farmer by both white and black people, and he sold his produce as far away as Dallas County. Right? And then here we go, then we get into George and Nettie, Wynn, Eliza, and Cynthia. Okay, so there's no issue. We know about, Uela, that's my grandmother. Her mama's gonna be Papa Claude, Claude Pryor, and Mama Liza. Now, if we're following Mama Liza's lineage, I hadn't done anything as far as Papa Claude and the Pryor family. I hadn't looked into that at all. If we're following Mama Liza, or Liza Wynn, it would be Mama Liza. She had a sister named Cynthia, to my knowledge. And then their parents are going to be George Wynn and Nettie Wynn, or Nettie Clark, that becomes Nettie Wynn. Okay, so immediately when I'm looking into this book, I'm thinking to myself, I'm under the impression that, okay, so we got an old George Wynn who was a white land and slave owner, and he has a half Indian and half black slave girl, and they have 3 children, George, Orange, and Dozier, and then he, mulatto children, and upon emancipation, he deeded his children 60 acres apiece. So in my mindset, I'm thinking, well, I ought to be able to follow these because he deeded this land over. People can, genealogy is going to always be tricky because you got different, mothers and fathers, and you have children any type of way. But as far as land, that ought to not be so tricky because this land being deeded is exact. You ought to be able to trace it, is what I'm saying. So I go looking. I'm trying to trace it. But one thing that did stick out to me is the fact that, he provided this to his children upon emancipation. I was under the impression that he had a slave girl and they have kids. And then once emancipation took place, he provided for these kids. That's what I'm going on for these years. All right, so here we go. We'll get into it. It's going to be long. Y'all might have to pause it, fast forward, rewind it, or whatever the case might be. So, if we look over here, this is going to be all the land deeds that took place back and forth. This is at the county clerk office. I just made it nice and neat in this little spreadsheet. And I have the date that it took place. I have who it was given to. I have who gave the land. I have how much acres was given. And I have the tract of land that it was given in, or the surveyed land. And the reason this is so important, because we want to stick right into this Thos Norris, or Thomas Norris is Thos is short for Thomas. I like Thos. I like how that sounds though, but that's short for Thomas. And the reason this is so important, because this area is going to be right there in that Birch Creek area. This Thos Norris, and to a certain extent that H. Brown and W.H. Moses. And I'm going to show you what I mean from that. Okay. This map here, this is they got a bunch of old maps. All this stuff is digitized now. They scan it in. I became a member of the Hopkins County Genealogy Society. They have plenty of links to all this type of information. This is a map of Hopkins County from 1853. And as we're looking, we see how they platted this different type of land out to different people. Some of this stuff was given from individuals that fought in a war, in the Texas wars and things like that. So they would be granted different type of lands out. And I guess it was like bounty land that was given to some of these individuals. And if we move on down here, I know that this map is probably kind of hard to decipher as of right now. But this is going to be that Thos Norris, or that Thomas Norris plot of land right here. And this is where my particular family's land is situated, right? So this is in 1853. And we'll go to a much more recent map of Hopkins County. And where am I now? I'm in 1840. So we're in 1840. But they still use the original surveyed names when they're talking about this area. So now it's been platted out a whole lot more type of ways. But we still talking about this Thos Norris area. And I've done it I've looked on like Google Maps and things like that. And I know where my family land, I believe it's going to be right here, and where you see this C. Pryor or Cloud Pryor platted land. That's where my particular land's going to be. And I know the Pleasant Hill Baptist Church is kind of somewhere in this area here. Not perfectly, but this Thos Norris area, that's going to be what I'm focused on here today. And let's do this. I created kind of like a color-coded map, because again, as I start looking into it, I got more and more intrigued, and then weeks and months, you're gonna see I got a lot of information here, because it kind of took me a while. One thing led to another, and the way that my mind works, I'm so super curious. I just keep trying to dig, get sucked in, because I want to see the bigger picture of it. And I kind of color coded some of these. We got some Striblings, we got some Pryor land right here. This W.F. Wynn is very interesting, because this is kind of like a loose end. I hadn't been particularly able to figure out what part of the family these individuals are, But so we're gonna be dealing with some Striblings. We'll be dealing with some Wynns. We'll be dealing with some Lindleys. We'll be dealing with some Pryors, of course. We'll be dealing with some Wrights. Wynn and Wright is basically like the same person or the same family. But this all goes to the inception of Hopkins County. All right, so now you see why we're gonna be dealing with some holderness or holiness, and some of this stuff gonna be spelled different. You'll get Wynn spelled with a Y. You'll get Wynn spelled with an I. You get it with an E on the end of it. So that's explaining why I'm focused on this Thos Norris tract of land right here. And these are going to be the deed transfers back and forth. I'm not necessarily here to argue who, the genealogy per se. I'm following the land. I'm trying to figure out where the land came from. Okay, so I'll scroll down. And I will make a note that these are not the only Wynns in Hopkins County. And I'm not sure that every Wynn in Hopkins County is related. Because if we go on down, we'll see some of these W.F. Wynn and J.R. Wynn, these individuals are very prominent, and they're very prominent in that particular area. And this is a white family per records. And I'm going to be dealing with census. I'm going to be dealing with death certificates and birth certificates. I'm going to be dealing with different types of deeds, things like that. But these individuals here, we got a bunch of other different Wynns, and they're dealing in different tracks that I personally felt like it didn't have anything to do with our area down here. So this is what I call like my pertinent negatives. And I'm in the medical field right now, so that's kind of where I get that terminology from. These are my pertinent negatives. These are individuals where I looked at their deeds and I said, well, their last name is Wynn, and they're making deed transfer, but it's not really in the area that I feel like it's pertaining. It's not focused on that particular plot of land that I'm dealing with. Okay. So here we go. We'll start off with, who is George Wynn, right? And off top, I should have put a picture of Mona. Of course, I have a few pictures of him. I didn't include it on this. I should have. I might click on a picture of it so we can see what he looked like. Because when you look at him, like you look at him and say, yeah, it looks like a mulatto man for sure. And I won't get into the research I've been doing in regards to the Native Americans and Native Americans, because that's a lot more research has to be done as far as that goes. But you had a lot of black Indians, even on my mama's side of the family, a lot of black Indians, and they would look a certain type of way. And there's a lot of information being uncovered in regards to what some of the so-called Negroes here in America, if they are just indeed straight African mixed with white, or if we got Indian mixed with white, or in some cases just plain Indians that have been reclassified. And as you look on the census, you're going to see our family called 4 different things. You're going to see black, you're going to see mulatto, you're going to see Negro, you're going to see colored. And then I guess eventually African American. So the same person is going to be called all these different type of things. So we understand it to just be a classification. Okay, so here we go. Who is George Wynn? And then we're going to look at who is Orange Wynn. Because of course, if we go into the book, we was told that his kids was named George, Orange, and Dozier. These are the people that received this plot of land, right? So, off top, we'll go straight to his death certificate. And I'm going to have to close some of these windows. I can't leave all of it open. I'm going to log in here because I use family search. I use different types of platforms to look up this information. But family search was pretty good because it brings up a lot of old census records, data and stuff like that, and lots of old death certificates and things like that. So here we go. While that's loading, I'm gonna try to close this stuff up. I appreciate y'all if y'all sticking with me. I also appreciate y'all if y'all got something to do and y'all like, man, I didn't know he was gonna be talking this long. Let me go do something else and I'll come back to it if I can. But remember, the reason I'm recording this is because this could very well be looked into 10 years later, or even beyond that. So I'm gonna go ahead and record it now. So here we go. We got George Wynn. This is his death certificate. This is Hopkins County. He's referred to as a Negro. He is widowed at this time. This is very interesting. This actually tells us a whole lot, because as we see here, and when we see Pleasant Hill, we know we're dealing with the right person. Whenever I saw Pleasant Hill on the death certificate, okay, I get excited because I say, all right, now we're talking about the right guy or the right person, because this is the cemetery that a lot of our family is buried in. So it's very interesting because this is going to be signed by Eliza Pryor, or Mama Eliza. So she was the individual that signed it. So she's the person that presented this information for the death certificate. Okay. Few interesting things on here. So of course this is her father. And on the side, it looked like they trying to really figure out how old he is. Like, man, they doing some math. So math hadn't changed. They doing the same type of math, and they're trying to figure out, height. Man, is he born in 87? Was he born in 84? Okay, that'll make him 58. We know he died here in 1942. When is he born? And that's going to be cleared up in just a moment when we get to looking at the census. But this is also very interesting. They say, well, who's his mother's name and where is she born? And who's the father's name and where are they born? And she put unknown. This would have been open and closed case right here if she would just, well, this is the father's name, this is the mother's name. I said, okay, that's wonderful. Open and shut case. But the fact that this is written in as unknown, I say, well, and that's not saying that she did not know. That's just saying that she wrote unknown. So that's already like, okay, well, every story that we hear about it, this is her own father, so she's going to know more than anybody. So if she's saying unknown, then here I am, generations later, I'm so not knowing what it is. So we're going to follow up on that. So this is interesting. So this is George Wynn. We know he died, this year. And, okay. So on to the next. And they actually created 2 death certificates for him. There we go. 2 death certificates for him. And on this one it says cause of death. What they put? Only said old age, and I received the certificate the day filed. Well, the Negro undertaker only said old age, so they didn't really know. Okay. So here we go. So we will go to the census data, and this is 1900 census, but they go all the way back. 1870 is gonna be like the earliest census that we really can get a hold of and get some information from. Everything before that, I'm hearing, I guess, anything for 1870, the census got burnt up or something like that, which is interesting within itself. But okay, so we're looking into the census data, and this is the fun part when you get to go through census, and I should have highlighted it, but y'all gonna find me just zooming in on it. And here we go. We got George Wynn, head of house, black male. And right here we got him listed at 1865 because, he's 35 years old when this was done. This is the census of 1900. And in regards to this, he's listed 1865. We know this is the guy that we're dealing with because we got Nettie here. This is his wife, right? And then we got Robert Kirchlow. That's going to be interesting going forward. Kirchlow. They got him listed as stepson here. And we have Cynthia Wynn, which is his daughter. And we know this to be Mama Liza's sister. And I guess her age is going to be about 2 years old right here. So Mama Liza's not on this particular census. And they have him listed as, I guess he was born in Texas, and his father is supposed to be born in Georgia, and then his mother's born in Texas. This right here is going to be very confusing as I move forward because this is always going to be changing. This is going to be, say something different on some different documents going to have their mother born here, father born here. So y'all can help me out with that if y'all know anything about it. And then we go whether he's a farmer. Could he read and write? Yes, he could read and write. He owned his own land. Even later in his life, you're going to see evidence of him having a servant living in his house himself. And to my understanding, George Wynn is actually a very wealthy man, as was Papa Claude. We got a lot to be proud of in regards to Birch Creek. These are wealthy men. I actually got video footage where my grandmother's sitting down. It's like 2 hours worth of video footage. I got my grandmother, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you. My grandmother is Uella Pryor. She married Henry Wooten. My grandfather is Henry Wooten. My grandmother is Uella Pryor. And they talk, and a lot of the stuff that I'm looking at here, they kind of touch on it here and there. And she gets to talking about her granddad and how they was wealthy, how they owned land, and all the type of stuff that they had going on. All right. So one thing that stands out, if he's born in 1865, remember, he's supposed to be given this land from the slave owner, which was his father, upon emancipation. He was supposed to be given land. But if you look at it right here, he's not born till 1865. And that's when emancipation took place. In Texas, I guess it would have been, anywhere between 1864 and 1865 or whatever. But that's when he's born. So now my mind already churned, and how did this guy give him this land when he ain't born until the slaves are freed? And I got video where my grandmama say, George Wynn was born the year the slaves was freed. That's what she said at home, man. He was born when the year the slaves were freed. So, is he handing this land over to a baby? The story already started looking different, because it's like I'm thinking that he had children that were slaves and they was living together with him, and then when emancipation took place, he give these children all his land. So, what's the real story? All right. So we'll keep moving, and we have the marriage of George Wynn. And again, you got to be very interested in this to actually sit and go through this stuff little by me. So I'm hoping a lot of people might not even be looking at this video so far no more, because they say, man, I know he's not finna sit and go through all this stuff. But I'm hoping one or two individuals in my family that's looking at this that's very interested in it, they riding with me, they rocking with it and say, yeah, I want to go through each one. So somebody has to be as interested in this stuff as I am. And, that's what I'm speaking to right now. To the rest of my family, I love y'all. I'll see you when we see. We'll hang out and kick it and all that good stuff. All right. So here's his marriage certificate. Let's go to Nettie. Cashmere is listed right here. I'm sure that this is the right individual we're dealing with. So we got George Wynn. He's married to Nettie. This is in 1900. Okay. And here we go. He's married to Nettie. Here we go. 1900, Hopkins County. Okay. So we keep moving. Boom. George Wynn. And now we get to Orange Wynn. And remember, I'm following these characters because this is who the book pertains to. Everything starts from the book. And in the book, who is George Wynn is supposed to be George Wynn's brother. I don't think that's the case, though, as I start looking more and more into this stuff. So we'll start with Orange Wynn. Why not? Let's start with his tombstone. Orange Wynn, but he changed that to Orange White. I don't know why he changes his name to Orange White. Somebody might be able to help me with that. I like this dude. From looking at his information, though, I really like Orange Wynn or Orange Wright, whichever one he refers to be called. But somewhere along the line, he changes his name from Wynn to Wright. So this is the guy who was married someone named Francis Holderness, or sometimes it's written as Holiness. I know we're dealing with the right guy. This is Pleasant Hill Cemetery. And again, they got his birth also listed. His birth listed 1864. So again, the slaves in Texas were emancipated in 1864, 1865. And interestingly enough, if you do your history on Texas, you'll understand that Texas wasn't even created as a state until around, I might get this wrong, but around 1845 or something like that. So we really only looking at a solid 20 or 25 years of legal slavery here in Texas. It's not as long as you would think. And that's a whole nother topic if we're talking about slavery in America. It's a lot involved. It's not necessarily the way that it's written in the schools. All right. Orange Wright. Okay. All right, here we go. Now we're in the we're gonna go to his death certificate. These legal documentation, and come on. Okay, so he's a black male. He's married at the time. Date of birth, don't know. At least this is what's written on the certificate. Tazewell, that's the community right there. Also in Sulphur Springs, we got Mr. George Wynn, and very interesting. This is listed. I know we're living with the right person. We got Pleasant Hill, so I'm confident. I'm comfortable with saying, all right, so this is Orange. Very interesting. For whatever reason, his father's name is Lewis Wynn. Mother's name is Rachel Lindley. We're gonna be dealing with some Lindleys. And the person that wrote this is gonna be J.W. Wynn. That's very so already per the book, it's already telling a different story. Cause I thought his daddy was supposed to be named Old George Wynn, and the half black, half Indian slave woman was supposed to be his mother, and that could very well still be that person. But this don't look like Old George Wynn. So either the book is saying one thing, but that don't even mean that this death certificate has to be 100% correct. That's just what this individual says, and this individual is relative, and we know that book wasn't written by a relative. It's written by somebody who, I'm gonna give him a little bit of rope. Maybe he didn't know everything, and he going off word of mouth, and he could get things mixed up. But once you publish a book, regards to our family, then we have a right to, go against that. So here we go. Rachel Lindley. Very interesting information. That's Orange. That's his Orange right. Now, I did find a Rachel Lindley that I believe could be the parent. Okay, here go the. All right, is it working? Okay. Again, some of my links might be out. Okay. I took this picture of the screen while I was at work. I promise you that this certificate exists. This is probably not the best copy of it. Bear with me. It's even written kind of light within itself, but there is a Rachel Lindley here who's supposed to die of typhoid fever. Everybody was dying of typhoid fever at the time. And birthplace here is written as Tennessee. This person is written as widow. Father, I don't know. Hopkins County. Okay. Okay. Of course, y'all fast forward, rewind, pause where you need to look a little close at stuff that I might have missed. All right, so now we are in the census. What census? What year are we in? What year are we in? We have the census recorded here. What is that year? 1900 census. Okay, here we go. Here's Orange Wynn, and we got Mr. Stribling. You'll see why that matters in just a moment. Orange Wynn, he's the head of household. He's listed as being born in 1864. Where he's from, where his parents are from. He's married to a woman named Frances, and they have, here we go, Louis, Jimmy, Polly, all these different names, Dave, Lucinda. So here's Orange Wynn, born in 1864. Again, slaves are emancipated, so he's born after slavery. So technically, if he is even born after slavery, even if old George Wynn did have a child with the having a slave woman, she can't even be a slave at this point in time because slavery does not exist. So at that point, just have a child with a half black, half Indian woman or former slave woman. I do even question whether or not our people were slaves on that side of the family. You know, I'm looking for records of it. I hadn't been able to find it just yet. Okay. And here we go. We have a James Wright. And this is the same individual. This is going to be a child of his, Orange Wright. And their death certificate is going to be further evidence that we know who we're dealing with. Father's name is Orange Wright. Mother's name, he's a retired farmer. Mother's name is Francis. Now we got Holiness. And now this person, you know, of course, has been a Negro male. So, okay. We know who we're dealing with. This is very tedious. It's very tedious because I only intend on making this video one time, so I'm gonna go through everything I can, so that now it's in video format. So from here, then we can just have conversations and informal conversations about what we know. This is that. I'm just going over the information so that I can do it one time, and you can go back and look at it on your own time. Okay. Orange Wright is a mother. Is Francis Holiness. This individual is okay. So we have death certificate here, and someone named Geraldine Bright is who signed this particular death certificate. Okay. Okay. So this one is very interesting to me because this is the death certificate of Francis Wright, and it's signed by, I think that's Lacey, right? And the maiden name is mother's maiden name is going to be Rita Holiness, Rita or Rita. And the father's name is going to be George Holderness. And you're going to see how this family links all the way back to one of the original black families in Hopkins County, the Holderness family. But what's very interesting to me here is the husband was listed as Orange. It looked like they write Orange Wynn, and then for whatever reason, they cross it out and put Wright next to it. So at some point in time, this person decided they didn't want to be called Wynn. They was known at Wynn at some point in time. But they said, no. Wright. Make sure you put Wright on there. He doesn't go by Wynn, he goes by Wright. So this right here speaks volumes to me. This one little mistake that this person made. And years later, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it says a lot to me about tracking the genealogy. Because it lets you know this person at one point in time known as Orange Wynn and changes it to Orange Wright. So, as he said, I'm gonna reinvent myself, or who knows what. I would love to know what the story is behind that. If somebody know what the story is for that reason, I'd love to know that. So okay, so now we got a better picture of who George Wynn is, who Orange Wynn is. I never found Dozier. I did find Dozier, but I didn't find Dozier in that capacity as far as one of their brothers. And being brothers and sisters. Okay. So now we want to get into our candidate. So now at this point I'm questioning their father being actually old George Wynn, the way that they put it. They say his father's name is old George Wynn. I'm like, but they was born when the slaves was freed. So was they born during slavery, or how did this actually happen? So now, this is going to be the candidates of who old George Wynn could be. Okay? All right. So we're going to go in. We're going to keep rolling with it. Take a break, though. If you take a break. All right, here we go. I believe that in the book, when the guy wrote the book and he was looking for who old George Wynn's father could have been, I believe that they went back to the slave schedules and they looked and tried to find an individual whose name was Wynn, which they did. And this must be, and even if you're not family, if you're somebody that work for the Genealogical Society, or if you are familiar with this book, you can help me understand what sources the author got this information from, because it will help me deal as I'm looking into the genealogy of my family. I would believe that we're going by this guy here, G.F. Wynn, because he's the only Wynn that's a slave holder in that time. This is 1860. And again, slavery in Texas took place from 1850 to 1860. That's really like a 20 years worth of slavery. And it's not in Texas. That don't mean you wasn't a slave in another state and then you moved to Texas. But I'm just saying in Texas. This is a guy I believe that they're speaking of. Now let us ask ourselves: is this George Wynn's father for sure? Let's do the math. Okay. Okay. So now we're in Ancestry.com, and this is the George Wynn that we're speaking of. And if you do the math on this particular guy, it will put him having Orange Wynn at the age 11. This guy would have had to have Orange Wynn by age 11. And then George Wynn by age 12, and we know that that's not really possible. So even here, they're admitting that, okay, the math is wrong if we're trying to fit it to this particular guy. And let me be careful, because we're going to be dealing with a slave owner, and we're going to be dealing with his son as well, and both of them can be candidates for being George Wynn's father. Okay? So let me be careful with that. I know that I was looking into both of those individuals here, and again, I reiterate that this work is not perfectly done. But I said I'm going to go ahead and record it as I have it. So this G.F. Wynn has a wife named Emily Wynn, and these are his children. And there's also a young George here too. Young George is 7. G.F. Wynn is 30 years old per census, and this is going to be in 1860, right? So we're in 1860, and remember, George Wynn's supposed to be born in 1864, right? So this guy would be too young to be George Wynn's father, right? But G.F. Wynn could be. You look at it and say, well, no, he's 30 years old. Yeah, he could definitely be the father, George Wynn. But we go ahead and take young George Wynn out of the equation, or young G.F. Wynn's son out of the equation. Okay. So that means, okay, G.F. could be the father for sure. Let me see, I got some notes on the side of here. Yeah. I will tell you that I got reason to believe that G.F. Wynn actually not even George, but it's Gabriel. But it don't matter. It could be George or it could be Gabriel. It don't matter. We're dealing with G.F. Wynn. Okay. So now we have to go by the slave schedule. So here we go. We're in the slave schedule now of G.F. Wynn, because remember, he would have had his child. He had a half black, half Indian woman by the name of. Well, they didn't list her name. She half black, half Indian, and they have 3 kids: George, Orange, and Dozier. Right. So that would mean G.F. Wynn. Okay, he does have slaves in his household. He has one who's 22-year-old female, and immediately we would say, okay, well, this must be the mother. And but here we go. We have a 17-year-old male in the household. And then we have a 1-year-old black male in the household as well. Okay. And just as a side note, we do have mulattoes as an option to be listed. And in the book, these children are mulatto, but in this instance, they chose to be listed as black. All right, not a big deal, but okay, let's pay attention to that type. Now we're getting into details. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, shoot, if this is the G.F. Wynn that they're using to base the book off of, the math not really adding up. Y'all help me with the math, because if this is the mother and she's 22 years old, her son can't be 17, right? One of her sons can be 1, all right, cool, but he can't be 17, right? Unless I'm tripping. Your son can't be 17 if you're 22, all right? And then again, if this is mother, and let's just say one of them is George and one of them is Orange, where is Doja? Or is there a Doja? And if there's not a Doja, then why the book say that there's a Doja? So the book not perfect. At this point in time, I was gonna stop looking into it, but I'm taking days where I'm just thinking about it. Well, where is Doja? Is this the mother? Is this the son? Is this the son? Is Doja? Is this the Doja right here? Is she really 22 years old? And then the mother's not listed, and then that's a son. And one of them is George, and one of those is Orange. Well, God, where the census says that they're a year or two apart. The tombstones say that they're a year or two apart. These guys right here, they 16 years apart. Maybe that's not old George. Or at least these records don't show it. And mind you, as I get into the land transfer, there's never an old George that transfers any land over to George Wynn or Orange Wynn. So there's too many fallacies already in that book. Number one, he didn't deed any land over. Let me do this. Number one, he all right, so now we're at the point to where I start to get curious, and this is why I say, all right, now I got to really look into it. Because I'm basing it off the book, and I'm seeing it's too many fallacies coming from this book. Number one, he didn't deed any land, or at least there's no records of him deeding any land to any children. There's no old George deeding any land to any children. They could have covered that up a certain type of way, but I'm saying, well, the book should say that he deeded it over, number one. Number two, there's no, where is old, it just don't seem like it's adding up at this point in time. They not slaves. They born when slavery ended. Old George and Orange. They born when slavery ended, and they're babies. So is he deeding this land over to babies? Of course, you can deed it over to somebody that's going to hold it for a certain amount of time, and we'll get into that theory as well. But now I'm looking at the slave schedule, and I'm like, where they getting this idea in this household? The ages of the slaves that he had, it don't add up. So even if he had fathered, we know his son couldn't have fathered him because he's too young, because they born in 1864, 65. And if he fathered them, these children with his slave woman, it ain't adding up. Maybe that was a slave woman, and then he fathered them after their emancipation or something like that. It's all a theory, though. You might be able to see the math why I don't. And if you do, say, well, it probably happened like this, or maybe it happened like that. This is all just records. I wasn't born. I'm not there. I'm not from there. So, what the word of mouth is going to hold weight in these categories. I'm just going over the data and the information, and we put it all together. All right. So here we go. So we'll move forward. So I'm gonna have to add up those. I made notes to myself. Okay. Now we got another candidate. This guy's name gonna be George O. Wynn or George O'Farrell Wynn. And I'm gonna try to run through this very quickly. at one point in time, I would have spent more time on it, but I don't believe that this is a guy. I think this guy ended up moving to Cleburne and building his life out there. I will show it real quick because this could be old George. You see what I mean? But I don't believe it to be the case. I'll make my case into why, at least based on the data that I've come across. Let's get into this. So this guy, here we go, George Wynn, and he's going to be 23, and this is the 1870. So does that put him being able to be the father? Sure. If George Wynn was born in 1864 and he's 23, that'll make him a young father, but I believe he could do it. What's that? If we're doing the math. You know, we're taking away 5 from 8 to, they put about 17 years old, something like that. 17, 18 years old. Sure, he could do that. And just as a history, this lady's name was Anne Wynn, I believe, and she marries a guy, I think it's Joseph Moncrief. This individual here is going to be her mother. You know, they moved to Texas. This guy here, George Wynn, is going to be Anne Moncrief's brother, younger brother. They're living in their household. And the only reason I'm even putting him as a candidate is because there are some Moncriefs that own some of the land in that Thos Norris tract. So that's why he's even a candidate, simply because he would have a sister who marries a Moncrief. And I don't want to get this wrong, but I believe that he marries a Moncrief, or she marries a Moncrief, and that land is somehow passed down. So her brother, you know, is in proximity to that area. So maybe it's this guy. But again, no deeded land ever crosses hands. This guy moves to Cleburne and starts his mother there. All right. So, and I can elaborate on this if I ever have to. I don't want to sit here and spend that much time elaborating on that right there. Take my word for it, or you know, do your own research. Tell me what you come up with. All right. So those are 2 candidates. All right. So now we get to John A. Wynn. Who is John A. Wynn? John A. Wynn is going to be the individual who has the first name of Wynn in Hopkins County. To my knowledge, he's the first Wynn that settles in Hopkins County. And I did some land records on that. I'm talking about they got a lot of old records that they're making digitized now. So I encourage anybody that's into this type of stuff, it's out there for you to go search. It's lots of old information. And I will just give you the summary of this. It looks like he gets some land deeded to him. 640 acres. This is John A. Wynn. This is the first Wynn in Hopkins County, to my knowledge. Old documents. They keep this stuff in Austin. And we're not going to read through all this. This is kind of just explaining where the land is situated. And he's going to be given his land, I believe, for serving in some type of war. It's like a Lamar bounty, I believe they call it. He was served in some type of war. Pay attention to this, because this is very important. They tell you how much land he was deeded. He was given that amount, in addition to that amount, in addition to that amount. Okay. Let's close some of these. Let's close some of these windows. If y'all rocking with me, I appreciate y'all for rocking with me. I promise when you see me, we don't have to spend as much time on this. We talk about all different types of things, but I want to just clear this up. Okay. And again, this is Lamar D. This is more information on it, or Lamar Bounty. This is part of Texas history. If you're into Texas history, you can look up the Lamar Bounty. This is the inception of Texas and Hopkins County, and all this good information. And hey, this is very important because it kind of shows a picture. You remember that very, very old map that I showed at the beginning of this video where they were showing different tracts of land, and you got your Thos Norris tract, and then you got, if you look back in that old map, there's going to be an area. He's by Crabtree. He's by Petrie John. They're showing where you can find this guy, J.A. Wynn, land in Hopkins County. It's going to be up by like White Oak River or something like that. It's not down there in the Birch Creek area that we're focused on. Okay. But it's going to line up with, this is in 1858, John A. Wynn. And remember those numbers? He was given 414 and a half acres. He was given 66 acres. He was given this amount. This is that chart. This is the chart that tracks that land. And I made it nice and neat. I spared y'all from having to look through all the old worn out looking paperwork. Okay. And this is what it will look like once you go to the genealogy website. This is what I made. This is what I made that my Excel sheet off of, combing through stuff like this. Combing through stuff like this. You see John Wynn. It was given to him by the state of Texas. It was given to John Wynn. It's in the tract. It's in the J.A. Wynn area. It's named after him because he was the first person to get it. And it's patent. So this is what shows what he was given. And then down here, he's given some more. And if you go to the old county clerk and you tell them looking at this book, and this is the number, they'll walk way back in the back. They probably wonder what you looking for. Hey, I need you to go way to the back. It's not even in the computer. I need you to go look in book F 116. When I showed up, I had them walk way to the back. They probably wondering what are you looking at this old book for? They probably hadn't even looked in it that long, but I was digging. I was doing research. I did it for y'all. I did it for us. Okay, and this is what, if you go sit down in the library, the computer is going to show this type of information. John A. Wynn, all this, you know, it shows all this information. This is when he actually becomes deceased. And hey, this is why I ruled him out as being the actual individual that deeds the land over to our George Wynn. Because I was about ready to say, well, maybe his daddy's name wasn't George Wynn. Maybe his daddy was John Wynn. Because John Wynn, the first guy that shows up there and actually has land. And I ruled out the other two guys. But upon his demise, it shows what actually happened to his land. And I believe, you know, it's on the north side of White Oak Creek. And it seems to have been divvied out to individuals. I think it might even went to auction or something like that. And no records of it showing that it was given to a George or Orange or doggone Dozier. I still haven't even found Dozier at this point. I'm wondering where's Dozier. And so that's what rules it out. But as you can see, you ought to be able to trace it. You know, if we're not afraid to sit down and read, we can trace all this type of stuff. So I said, well, shoot, John A. Wynn, he was the first guy there, but I don't think his land went to my people. That's going to be the second page showing where, you know, the land, his particular land went to. And what's this? Probably the third page showing where his particular land went to. And this spreadsheet, I can make it available to anybody that's willing to pick up where I left off. You say, man, send me a link of that so I can click, so y'all can click on my links and look at what I have, and then y'all can pick up from there if somebody wants to help me clear this out, because we so far in this video, it could be some people totally disagreeing with where I'm coming from, where everybody's saying, that ain't right, nah, that don't look right, nah, where are you getting that from? And that's the way I can give you the links, and then you can go through it and say, then you can see where I'm getting it from, and you can help. Well, now this might go here or this might come from there. I don't have to be 100% right about this type of stuff, but I'm at least showing where I'm coming from with it. All right. So that's John A. Wynn. So bam, red. Reason they red is because I'm thinking to myself, no, I don't think that's their people. I think this is who they wrote the book about right here. But for reasons I gave, I heard, I'm not sure that that's old George Wynn. And then I'm not sure about this guy, and then I'm not sure about John Wynn. So now I'm kind of at a standstill. I'm really at a standstill. This is months worth of work. I'm sitting at work I'm thinking to myself, shoot, who could it be? What's going on? Why I'm not getting the answers I want? I guess I'm gonna have to stop where that is. But I don't know. I'm still thinking I don't believe the book is 100% right. And I got reason to believe that my grandmama didn't even think that book was right. I don't know why she could have been upset with it from different reasons from me, but I think my grandmama had a problem or issue with them publishing that book. Because some of the things might not have been, the way it's supposed to be. I don't know what she disagreed with. Maybe it's some of the stuff I'm looking at right now, thinking to myself, shoot, it don't really add up. But anyway, that book might not necessarily have been correct. So now I'm trying to think, well, what is the truth then? What's going on? And this is where I start making the chart, and now I'm going by every deed transfer. And I got to the point where I actually drove out to Sulphur Springs, Hopkins County, and I told him to go look into some stuff for me. And this is where I come across this individual right here, David Wynn. And people will say, well, who? If I ask about David Wynn, I say, who is David Wynn? Okay. So John A. Wynn is the very first Wynn in Hopkins County, to my knowledge, to own any piece of land. And where he get it from? He got it from the state of Texas. But the second individual to own land in Hopkins County by the name of Wynn is going to be this guy right here, David Wynn. And where did he get it from? He got it from James Ferris. How much he get? He got 107 acres. And what I'm real happy about, he got it in this area, those North. Remember, this is Birch Creek. This is the area that we're dealing with. And he got it in 1869. Okay, so let's dig in deeper. Go get you some water if you're still with me, or get you some coffee or something. I need some coffee or something. So let's see, who is David Wynn? Who is David Wynn? Okay. Who is David? Now I gotta see who David Wynn. At this point in time, I'm not even saying that David Wynn is George Wynn's father or grandfather. I'm just trying to figure out who David Wynn is, and I am able to find a David Wynn. And as you can see, we are in Hopkins County. Now we're in 1870. Remember, that's as far back as we can go as far as the census goes in Texas. And I'm looking into David Wynn, and okay, he's listed as being 50 years old in 1870. So what was this going to put his birthday around like 1820? This guy would have been born. And he got a wife by the name of Mary. He's from Tennessee. He does own his land, right? And 17-year-old Willimer, I don't know what this say. I so don't know what this say. Punkinware, or that could be a D, Duncanware, I don't know. Y'all could help me with that. 14 years old. She's supposed to be born in Texas. They're supposed to be born in Virginia. Supposed to be born in Tennessee. And if you study American history, you'll look into Virginia and Tennessee, and you'll be able to see what's really going on around these times. 1820, 1830, Virginia, Tennessee. It's it's a lot moving around there with whites, with blacks, and with Indian Native American. Okay. but was very peculiar. And I didn't even catch this the first time I look at it. Okay, he's listed as being black here. I said, okay, well, shoot. We in 1870 and we got a black landowner. That's already going against what I would have thought. And everybody else on this is actually listed as white. So I said, well, this guy here, he's and then we have mulatto here. I say, okay, well he's a pioneer, you would think at the time, because in my mindset I'm thinking around that time, if you black, you not really owning no land. That's just from the education that I was given growing up in the school system. So I'm already thinking myself, well, this is an interest carrier, David Wynn, but he's not connected to us at any regard yet. He's just a candidate. Okay, but I go down, I start looking into this David Wynn. Now this is where it's gonna start getting interesting. This is where it's gonna start getting interesting. So when I'm talking to my family and I mention David, I said, y'all ever heard of a David Wynn? And they like, nah, I never heard nothing about David. I'm going through all the candidates, all the different George Wynn. I don't believe those to be the case, the people I saw at first. So now I'm looking at John A. Wynn. All right, John A. Wynn, he's the first Wynn. Maybe he's the guy. No, now David Wynn, he's the second Wynn in Hopkins County to own some land. He just so happened to be black. You know, that don't have nothing to do with nothing. Our people can be white, black, Indian. It don't matter. We know we got plenty of opportunities to be mixed up in different ways. You know, this was not about trying to particularly just prove, hey, this guy's black, he owns some land. This just happened to be the next candidate on the list because of his proximity, the time frame. He's a landowner. So I have to look into this guy as well. And as I'm looking into it, okay, I go all the way down to Hopkins County because remember, these have records next to them. Now I know I put the record on here, right? Okay, that's my fault. Well, now I got it in here. Okay, well either way, they have records associated with them, and then if you go down to the county clerk, they can actually open the real book up for you. So I go down and I say, man, I want to see this guy David Wynn, and immediately I find a will. Okay, so I go into the read with this guy's will because I need to be able to rule him out as well. And I'm going to go through this with y'all. Y'all stick with me. This is very important as far as I'm concerned. This is what kind of changed everything as I'm looking into it. So I'm going to try to read it to the best of my ability. This is handwritten from David Wynn in the state of Texas in the county of Hopkins. Okay, and this is his last will and testament. Okay. In the name of God, amen. I, David Wynn of the county and state, aforesaid, I'm not going to be able to read all these correctly. Aforesaid, being of sound mind and of disposing memory and knowing the uncertainty of life and that death will surely come upon all men, do make and publish this my last will and testament, hereby revoking all others. Okay. First, I do will and direct that all of my such debts shall be paid out of my estate. I'm doing best I can with this, y'all. Second, I give and bequeath out of my estate to each of my children to Bill Frank, Rachel, maybe that's Richie, Abby, Cindy Wynn, the sum of $5 each. So they got a whole $5 a piece, all of them. Third, I do will bequeath to Julianne, widowed wife of my deceased son, David Wynn, 40 acres of my home, tract of land, being the 40 acres claimed by the said David Wynn in his lifetime, and I further direct that my executor hereinafter to be named shall be fully authorized to make to the said Julian Wynn a full, complete title to said 40 acres of land. So it seems that his deceased junior, or David Wynn, he's going to leave to his wife, Julianne, 40 acres because he claimed it before he passed. That's what he wanted. And I promise I'll read better than this. I'm just trying to understand the cursive. Fourth, this is where it get interesting. I also give and bequeath to my 5 grandchildren, to which Willie Martin, Josephine Martin, Orange Martin, George Wynn, and Sally Wynn, all of my homestead tract of land, except the 40 acres above mentioned, to be deeded to Julianne Wynn, the same being the tract of land I bought from Ferris, and upon which I now live and situated in Hopkins, Texas, upon the waters of Birch Creek. So it would seem at that point in time he was referring to it as Birch Creek. So maybe that's what it was called from the beginning. Okay. The reason it's interesting is because it jumped out to me because we got 2 very hot names. Orange, even though it's referred to as Martin, and George Wynn. I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, Orange is not a very common name. Now, it might have been a few people named Orange, but when you see somebody named Orange, you say, hold on, you got Orange and you got George here. Okay. And I got video where my grandmother say her cousin Joseph Wynn. We'll get into all that type of stuff. This is very interesting. Also, this guy is saying upon the waters on Birch Creek. So David Wynn would seem like he was situated in Birch Creek. Not only that, David Wynn would seem that he had his 5 children and he deeded land to his grandchildren, one of which was individual by the name of George Wynn. Is this our George Wynn that we talking about? Okay. I also give and bequeath to my 5 grandchildren above named all my household kitchen furniture and all my personal property and effects of every description. I do. So I guess like silverware and all that type of stuff was big for them back then, point of time. And then 6, I do by hereby appoint John Rollins. So this is his guy right here. This is my partner. This is the person who's going to be the executor of this, my last will and testament. He's the full power and carry out the same according to the truth and stead and spirit hereby. Boom. So basically he's saying, all right, this is my bro right here who gonna vouch for me saying what I'm saying. So upon my demise, I'm counting on you, John Rollins. You gonna bear witness that I wrote this and I said what I said. And I do believe that we know some Rollins. There are some Rollins that's also going to be some of the, again, black founders in Hopkins County. But this was big for me. I'm reading this. I'm saying, wait a minute. We got a George Wynn being deeded some land. Only thing about it is he's not being deeded from a old George or a John Wynn or nothing like that. It's saying right here, this guy's getting some acres in Birch Creek from an individual by the name of David Wynn that just so happened to be listed as black. And if you go on and continue, he's going to say, okay, I got links to this so people can comb through it. If you ask me for the link to it, I send it to you. You can read the rest of this. He's basically saying, they're going to settle this estate and probate and everything. His executor, they're going to settle all this type of stuff. Boom. David Wynn. He put his mark down. This is interesting to me. I really like that. I don't know what it is or what it represents, but I think it's kind of cool because we know that this was, This was sealed the third day of March in 1878. That's a long time ago. That's a long time ago. And I'm thinking, is this the same land that we hold to this day? Shoot, I think so. Quite possibly. Okay. And then now we got the proof of will. Who's gonna sign that? Let's go to the next. That's interesting, y'all. That's kind of groundbreaking as far as I was concerned. I never heard of a David Wynn, but I'm seeing George Wynn and I'm seeing Orange Wynn. Okay. And I'm just gonna glance over this real quick. It just shows, all right, then it shows that he do pass, and then we got John Rollins writing that he understood what David Wynn wanted to happen. And then you got the clerk office stating that they're going to hold a probate on the steps of whatever at what time, and then they're going to execute what was in his will and testament. Boom, y'all can read that on your own time, but we're looking at something substantial in that regard. Okay. And this is just the deed that's going to corroborate what we just saw, because there's a will saying what he wants to happen to his land. And then I go back and I find the deed. It's an old document from James Ferris to David Wynn. And what was in, because at first we think like, shoot, okay, if this David Wynn, on that census, they got everybody else listed as white, but he's listed as black. Well, maybe they could have made a mistake. Well, I don't think they made a mistake, but possibly. I don't know what's going on. Because remember, we're looking for a white guy who was owning slaves and everything. And keep in mind, this is still his grandfather. This don't mean that George Wynn daddy is not white and his mama is not black and Indian. This just means it seems as though the land would have come from his granddaddy, who would have been a black man by the name of David Wynn. And we'll just read through this real quickly. I know nothing I've done here today has been quickly, but I'm trying to cover as much as I can. This is months worth of work. So this is the state of Texas. This is Hopkins County. This is from James Ferris to David Wynn. This is no all men. I ain't gonna read all this very good. I'm surprised I can read any of it at all. Saying that James Ferris of the county of Hopkins and of the state of Texas in consideration of $800. So he brought them racks out at that time to me, paid by David Wynn, a free man of color of the county of Hopkins and the state of Texas, have granted, for this deed. And, so he bought it. And they say where it's situated in. I see the Sabine, the waters of Sabine. James Riley, this is an interesting story about this guy, but we know we're dealing in a assignee of the Thomas Norris area. So we dealing in the right area. We dealing with Mr. David Wynn, who purchased some land in the right area. He bought it again, which is very interesting. We said, well, where he get? I think this amount, $800 some odd dollars, it equated to about $20,000 in today's money when we was looking over. Because now I'm interested. I'm asking my wife, Google that. Google, how much money is that? She tell me that's $20,000 in today's money. I say that's very interesting, and this is just gonna tell the area of land that it's pertaining to, because back then they used natural boundaries to say, I guess, where the plat of land was, and this is just gonna be that second page right there. There'll probably be some dates on this second page. I took pictures of it. This is in an old book situated in the county clerk office in Hopkins County, downtown Sulphur Springs. That's where I'm at, taking pictures. This book big. It weighs about 30 pounds. It's a real big book. And this is going to be 1869. So that's when he bought this. And we talking about, what's this? This is 4 or 5 years after slavery ended. So where he get these racks? We're not saying that he was not a slave at no point of time. We're just saying he's listed as being a free man of color. And that's not to say that he maybe he was Native American. They have different grants and things like that was given when relocation took place, when people had to go from east of the Mississippi to west of the Mississippi. Could be not. We have to consider all these different scenarios, but this is a man of color that somehow got 850 racks to buy this land that he later deeds to his grandchildren. And his kids only got $5 a piece. I don't know why that happened, but okay. That's just the records. Okay. So let's look back. So now I'm thinking to myself, could this be the David Wynn we talking about? We got Orange Wynn and we got George Wynn on that paper. So I go back to the census and I look at it again. Y'all with me? Okay. So I'm back at David Wynn. Now I'm looking, I'm saying, man, this guy here, could this be the guy? But he's black. It's supposed to come from this white guy. But he had land. We know this is the guy we're dealing with. He's a Tennessee farmer. He's a landowner. But who are these people? I don't know who these people are. But then I realized something. That's one household. This household goes on. There's more in this household. So I had to click the next button. And as I click the next button, and for sure, and of course, it's going to be kind of smudged and blurry the way these records were scanned in, but we are continuing in David Wynn's household. And if you continue in his household, you'll see that there is a Rachel listed there. Female, looks like she's about 26. There is a Miller or possibly Willa, I don't know. Willie, possibly, I don't know. There is a Josephine listed in his household. There is what seems to be an Orange also listed into this man's household. They're listed as mulatto, female, male. Rachel is listed as black. Okay, and there's also a William Solomon, and he's listed in the household as well, and he's farm laborer. He has a different last name. He could quite possibly could have just been a hired hand. Okay, that's very interesting. This appears to be an Orange listed in the household. Josephine, so we got another, and we also have a Rachel. This is looking more and more like the David Wynn that we're looking for. And if you look to the next tract of land, we have another seemingly David Wynn, which could possibly be his junior that he's speaking of. And in David Wynn's household, there's a boy by the name of Thomas, and there's also a woman by the name of Julia A. or Julianne, who could very well be the widow of this David Wynn. And they're all listed as mulatto, he's black, mulatto, she's black. Okay, so now it's getting more interesting. Now we could very well be, I'm convinced at this point when I'm looking at this, I'm convinced that we are dealing with the David Wynn that this is the guy. This is the guy. There's David Wynn Jr. right there. He's in the tract of land right next to him. He's a farmer. His wife's name is Julia. Their son's name is Thomas. That's him. That's him. Everybody else is white from there. And they're the only black and mulatto. Now, if she's black and her kids are mulatto, would that mean that her father, her kids is a white man? Very possibly so. Yeah. Do your research on what mulatto mean in regards to white, black, and Indian, because that term is going to change. I've seen terms where you got two black parents listed and their kids are listed as mulatto somehow. And it's like, how do you get two black parents and then their kids are mulatto? But in regards, we're not necessarily focusing on race at this point in time. What we're looking at is property. I believe that this is the David Wynn that actually deeded the land over to George and to Orange. Okay, can I further my argument? Okay, let's look into Josephine. We still going, y'all. I'm still going. Let's look into Josephine. Because now I'm strictly looking at that whole deed. I'm trying to find as many as names that I saw on that wheel. I'm trying to find their link to one another. I've already found Orange. I found Rachel. I found Josephine that was listed in his household in the census. Who is Josephine Wright? Okay, let's go up and figure out, when did Orange and George actually get their first land deeded to them? Interestingly enough, their land was first deeded to them per records in 1882. On the same day. The last day of the year, for whatever reason. Maybe they came of age or something like that, for whatever reason, last day of the year. But who gave them their very first recorded partial land, right? It was given to them by George Stribling and others. And it was given to Orange Wynn et al. Or and others, or and wife, or stuff like that. And again, we're looking at records that's provided online, and then you can go to the county clerk and pull it up. And this is in the Thos Norris area. George Stribling gives George Wynn his very first piece of land. That's interesting, ain't it? And then from there, you see it going back and forward. I have reason to believe that these individuals, Jasper Thomas, is a clerk. He works in the clerk office at the time, meaning this could have been some land that was held, in probate or something like that for these individuals. Jasper Thomas, J.T. Hargrave, I believe that they're connected with like the sheriff of the town. I'm not sure. Y'all help me out. And then of course we got a Millie Holiness, right? So why is it that George Stribling gives these guys their first piece of land in 1882? Okay, let's look down here to who is Josephine Wright. Who is George Stribling? Who is George Stribling? Who is George Stribling? We're very closely related to Stribling. George Stribling, we go through all this type of stuff, his census and everything like that. George Stribling, where you see a Wynn, you see George Stribling. Where you see George Wynn and you see Orange Wynn, you see George Stribling. You see the Lindleys, you see the Holiness, you see some Hoskins, you see all these individuals. George Stribling was right there. They was living by each other. And who does George Stribling marry? George Stribling is going to marry an individual by the name of Joe Wright. All right. And this is in 1879. Okay. He marries a Joe Wright. Who is Joe Wright? Okay, let's look at it. Not only did he marry Joe Wright, he got a lot of census data. Did I put these census on here? Because they had a bunch of kids together. Joe Wright and George Stribling. We have a Mary Stribling. And hey, she's listed as being female, white. That's interesting. Who are her parents? George Stribling and Joe Wright. Then we got a Ned Stribling. This individual is listed as Negro. Who are their parents? George Stribling and Joe Wright. Same parents. One's white, one's Negro. That's interesting. So this is George Stribling and Joe Wright. Again, yeah, we getting tedious. We're gonna be tedious about this. We got some more Striblings. We got a Rosetta Stribling, whose mother is Josephine Wynn. Oh, is that who Joe White is? Is that Josephine Wright? Jeanette Stribling, Joe Wynn. So we got the same individual going as Josephine, Joe Wynn, Joe Wright. Is this the same Josephine from the wheel? I think so. Is this the same Josephine that was living in the David Wynn household? I think so. And if it is, who would that be? And we got him again. George Stribling. Now we're colored. Now we're colored and now we're Negro. Jeanette Stribling, father George Stribling, Joe Wynn. Louis Stribling, father George Stribling, and Mary Josephine Wright. So Joe Wright is Josephine Wright, or Josephine Wynn, who I believe to be the individual we saw on that census, which is Orange Wynn's sister. George is not on there, but we got Orange and we got Josephine. Right? And they're on the deed. Josephine is in that deed, y'all. Okay. And I know I got a census. Let me click on one of these censuses. I should have known better and put it in here. Because I definitely got a census with George Stribling and Josephine Wynn and Wright, and they seem to have had a lot of children together. And George Stribling is going to be the first individual to deed some actual land over to both George Wynn and Orange Wright. Come on now. Okay, let's try to go early as we can with the census. We'll go 1900 census. And they got it out here for us if we look. You know, the information's out here. I'll do this real quick. Now we're African American, so we've been Negro and been colored and also African American. These are all different terms that's really been placed on what they're referring to as our people. Come on with it. Come on with it. All right. Wish my internet was working a little bit better, but yeah. So here you go. Here we go. All right. We got George Stribling, and then we got Lewis is the son. And we got a lot of kids, daughters. And you know what? Josephine is not on this one because she actually passes away. And these are the kids that we're looking at. And right next door, we got Orange Wynn over here and Francis, and then here go their kids. So where you see George Wynn, you see Stribling. And Mr. Stribling gave Orange Wynn their first plot of land, and also Mr. Stribling was married to Orange Wynn's sister. Okay. Now we're gonna keep moving because I'm sure there's some census available where they got Josephine on the census. I believe so, but since I didn't organize that correctly, we're gonna keep it moving. We saw enough birth certificates. We know what we're looking at. Y'all see where I'm trying to go with it. Y'all see what type of correlation I'm trying to draw. Unless this is it right here. If this is it right here, I'm gonna show it to y'all. Yeah, we got time. We got all the time in the world. This is it. He might be a bachelor in this one here. Should we click on it? No, he's single. He's bachelor on there right there. All right, we're gonna keep it moving. Okay. Now, who is Doja? After all this time, did I find a Doja? I think I did find a Doja. Who is Doja? Where's Doja? We remember the book promised us a Doja. And finally, you do find they got this individual here, Ewell Stribling, born in 1910, which is a little bit later than the person's siblings, and to our George Stribling right here. And then we got a Dosha Jones. So all of a sudden, it would appear that George Stribling remarried, and his new wife would be named Doja. So maybe somewhere along the lines when they was writing that book and they was trying to figure out who was who, somebody mentioned Doja's name, and somebody maybe got it mixed up. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be off with it. So y'all help me out. We understand that. But that's the only time I ever see a Doja. It would appear to be George Stribling's second wife. And maybe somebody said, yeah, you know, George Wynn and Orange Wynn, and then they sister or their cousin was married to George Stribling. And maybe somebody thought they were talking about Doja when they could have very well been talking about his earlier wife. And y'all look up George Stribling for yourself if y'all get time and y'all will see all the census and everything. Okay, Rachel Lindley. Remember, we looking for a Rachel. Remember, all the way up on Orange's death certificate, somebody lists his father's been somebody named Lewis. Never found a Lewis Wynn, but the mother was listed as an individual named Rachel Lindley. And then when we go to the will, we see one of David Wynn's kids by the name of Rachel. And then if we go to his census, we see in the household of David Wynn, there is who's at an age that could be his daughter, an individual by the name of Rachel. And underneath her, you see a Josephine and you see an Orange, as if that could be her kids. And I would believe this to be Rachel Lindley. Because remember, on Orange death certificate, listed as mother as Rachel Lindley. And I just saw a lady by the name of Rachel. She married somebody by the name of Dick Lindley or Richard Lindley. And this could very well be the Rachel that we're pertaining to. Okay? And more research can be done on that. You know, I ain't going to hang my hat on it, but I believe that to be. Okay, we got Dick Lindley. And we got Rachel. And right here we got a son by the name of Will. Born 1875. Right? Now, I don't see no Orange on here. Nope. Because she had remarried, because by this time, she's 53 years old. Orange would be grown, and, you know, doing his own thing at the time. So, we going through all the information. Okay. Julia A. or Julianne, or this person here that and we're going to get to that part too, that Pleasant Hill Baptist Church and who actually gives the land for the Pleasant Hill Baptist Church. I'm going to try to start wrapping this up for y'all too. But of course, right after David Wynn passed, John Rollins, which is the executioner, gives this estate over to Julianne Wynn, who I believe, what records show, remarries a guy by the name of J.M. Younger, and they have a son by the name of Thomas. Well, we saw Thomas on the deed when she was married to David Wynn Jr. We saw the boy by the name of Thomas. And let's go ahead and click on it, because, hey, this is what we're doing. We're going through the information. Let's go through it. Good thing about having it recorded is you can always come back and forth, you know, as time permits. Here we go, Julianne, who marries a James Younger, right? 1879. That's right at the death. It's actually seen of David Wynn, you know, or David Wynn Sr., right? And remember that they had a son by the name of Thomas. Julianne and David Wynn Jr. has a son by the name of Thomas listed in their household. And of course, they were just writing stuff down with no regard to us in the future. And here we go. We got us a Julia in the household of this guy J.M. Younger. They, dates match up, ages match up, stuff like that. Okay. And as I research, I find later on J.M. Younger at Tuts is deeded some land from Thomas Wynn. So that's the Julianne that we're looking at, who remarries a guy by the name of J.M. Younger, and their son deeds his land over to them at some point in time. And keep in mind, around that time frame, I believe that women could do business, but I think if you was married, there was a certain way where you couldn't really. You had to use your husband to transfer land over. So that might be where we got George Stribling giving this land over to Orange Wynn, because she's married to their relative and things like that. Okay. We moving, we getting there. We getting along, we getting this all recorded, so we'll have it to look at. And then last but not least, we got a Sally Wynn here. Sally is on that wheel. Or there's a name of Sally on. She was one of those 5 grandchildren that was supposed to have gotten something. Right? And Sally Wynn, I believe this is the Sally Wynn that's connected only because this individual named Sally Wynn is going to marry somebody whose last name is Kirchenlow. Sam Kirchenlow. And remember, that name rings a bell because if you look into George Wynn's household in the 1900s, you got Cynthia Wynn, and you also got an individual by the name of, with the last name Kirchenlow. Robert Kirchenlow, I believe it was Kinchenlow was the name. And here we have a Sally Wynn in 1891 marrying a Sam Kinchenlow. Okay, so I'm under the impression of this could very well be a cousin or a sister or some sort, and they could have sent their child to go live with George Wynn later on. Okay? Am I reaching, or do that make sense? And you tell me. Or if something else make better sense, show me that. And Sally Kinchlow. Now their name is Kinchlow. Sally Kinchlow is the wife of, what is this guy here name? They got him Samuel Kinchlow. 1867 is when they listed to be born. 1872. So if they all kinfolk, she would be a little bit younger than the rest of them. And they got these kids right here. And they not in Hopkins County. I don't believe they're gonna be in they in Hunt County, which is not far. They in Greenville. Maybe George Wynn was in Greenville. I don't know. I ain't looking up. I never found George Wynn as a child. Let me say that. I never found young George Wynn. I only found him when he's grown, and then he got land, and he's deeded some land, and his census takes place when he's an adult. And then we're going to have the same thing right here. I won't go through it. 1910, we're going to see Sally Wynn. No, I am going to go through it because I'm going to do this once. We're going to do this once. Appreciate y'all if y'all done stuck with me. If anybody done stuck with me, I only appreciate it. And maybe somewhere down the line I have a relative or somebody that's just as thorough and detailed as me. Maybe that's going to pass through the genealogy, or somebody pick it up and pick up where I left off. Where we at with it? Samuel Kirchenlow, Sally. Got Wilma Kirchenlow, son, listed at 15. Maybe this I don't know if this will line up with that other name I was looking at, but anyway, here we go. And then we got some Rollins in here. We got some Rollins next though, living next to him. So yeah, I don't see no Robert Kirchlow on here. I just remember that name, and I remember that there also being a child in the George Wynn household that had that same name. And when you're looking up genealogy stuff, you don't got no exact record. You kind of, nothing is exact. It's like the evidence more than likely would point to, boom, like 99.9% chance of, boom, whatever. But that can't be exact because I wasn't there. But here we are in Hunt County still. We in Greenville. I might need to look for George Wynn in Greenville. If I could find him, I still hadn't found him. Young George Wynn, I should say. But at this point in time, I'm saying, man, this is where he got that land from. All I did that long part of going through all this is just to try to, these are all the names of the people that I saw on that will. So all I'm trying to do is validate the David Wynn will that we saw and more than likely say this is our George Wynn that we're dealing with in regards to where we got that land from. Molly Fowler is just the individual that goes and calls George Wynn her nephew. And George Wynn gets land from more than just his granddaddy. He inherits a piece of land possibly from his granddaddy. Then he go off and he parlay that into lots of different ways. And Molly Fowler just refers to him as a let's click on it, come on, as a nephew. And I'm thinking, well, shoot, who is Molly? Maybe y'all can tell me who is Molly Fowler. If we know why she said that this is his nephew, then we can figure out who his daddy is and all that type of stuff. But Molly Fowler, the County Hopkins cat, for consideration of $1, to be paid by George W. Wynn. Hereby acknowledge and further consideration of love and affection I have for my nephew, G.W. Wynn, have granted and sold. So he gets a piece of land as well from Molly Fowler, and it's going to be in the Harriet Brown survey, which is right by that Tom Thos Norris tract of land. So that's interesting. And we'll go back and we'll look and we'll see once he gets this land from George Stribling at the age of, if we do the math, what's that? He turned 18. Then he get to running. He rolling. Bam. Now they going back and forth. They get to granting land back and forth between, I believe these to be cousins and not brothers, like the book say. Here's that G.W. Moncrief, right? And there is land deeded 1900 from a G.W. Moncrief. So let's bring him. Hey, he could be back in the mix in regards to being a potential father, because we're basing on his grandfather being David Wynn. That could be his daddy. Who knows? I did have reason to believe that these people were, because he could have been a lawyer or something like that. Let's look into these. There's work to be done. I don't have it. Is it highlighted? I don't got it highlighted. So you can see it if you pause the screen. That's just the records showing that part. I need to go and open that book up, see what it say. And then we got Nettie Wynn, Henry Fowler, which that might be why this is his nephew. Henry Fowler could have been through marriage. George Wynn could be a nephew, because Nettie Wynn supposed to have had her own things going as well, and she had her own land moving as well. So we see that going back and forth. Julianne Conley and George Stribling and George Wynn, they do some more deals. and G.W. Moncrief. G.W. Moncrief. His name is not Wynn, but G.W. Moncrief. Moncrief. It was a reason why I connected that Moncrief. Okay. Then when they go back and forth. All right, we're gonna get to wrapping it up at this point in time too. And I'll close it with saying this. I gotta figure out who this Margaret C. Wynn is. This woman, she's a white lady. And she's the mother of a J.R. Wynn and a W.F. Wynn. They share some type of relation to a Coulter's Phillips. Her husband, her name is supposed to be like Margaret C. Gonzaga or something like that. And her husband is going to be named Charles Humphreys Wynn. And he passes away. She's a widow. And the reason why she's so important to this whole equation is a couple reasons. Number one, Margaret C. Wynn is the individual who first donates the land to the very important Pleasant Hill Baptist Church. Margaret C. Wynn. And this is in the Thos Norris section. Margaret Wynn donates that land. Who is she? How does she relate to the rest of the Wynns that we look at on there? Because she's a Wynn by marriage. Her husband is named Charles Wynn. And they have children. And these Wynns, these James Wynn, J.A. Wynn, and W.F. Wynn, these brothers right here, they do a lot of business. They do a lot of business in that area. Thos Norris, H. Brown, W.H. Moses. This is all that Birch Creek area. M.A. Bowling. They do a lot of business, and this go all the way up to 1926. I ain't go beyond that because after you continue, you're gonna see how that George Wynn land ended up getting deeded to Claude Pryor, and Claude Pryor, he turned it up even more. He started making deals. Claude Pryor was making some big moves back then. But I see this W.F. Wynn, this J.R. Wynn, and this Margaret Wynn, but I never see them do anything in regards to our George Wynn and our Orange Wynn. I never see, they have no correlation. They don't transfer any land between each other at no point to my recollection. They transfer land around each other to other people, but George and Orange, they start much earlier. And they never, I don't see any records of any land being transferred from this Margaret Wynn to a George or an Orange, or from this James Wynn to a George or an Orange. But they do it real big. They do it real big. They do a lot of acres. They buying lots of land from people in that area, and their last name is Wynn, and they right there by where we are, but I can't put it together, and they, that's where I would like to see more evidence on it. But the only correlation is Margaret C. Wynn donates the land for that church, or not donates, or transfers the land over that church. We have to see what the price is for it, and I think that's what happened. I never got down there to Hopkins County to actually see this, because it's in 1887. That church, the land is given for that church. 1887. Yeah. And right after David Wynn and Julianne Wynn is giving some land, you get Margaret C. Wynn, and she gets some land. This is given from Clifton. And then she passes some over to McCarty. But she gets to pumping and moving right after David Wynn and Julianne Wynn. They get to moving. And then a few years later, you see Orange Wynn, they get in the mix. So, all right. That's it, y'all. We're not gonna go into the rest of this. A lot of this stuff is just nothing. All right, now this is the last little part because I got to asking. Somebody mentioned the name Hoskins, and was saying how Hoskins could have been George Wynn's daddy, and the only Hoskins I actually found in that area again is gonna be a black man by the name of Jerry Hoskins in 1820, and he's found in the holiness. He's found in the Holderness household with Francis and with Rita and somebody named Minta, something like that in there. And last thing I'll just show you is that these guys, Jerry Hoskins, these guys, George Holderness, they were listed as being colored in 1867, and they are on voters registration rolls. And they are basically landowners as well, showing that David Wynn was not an outlier. He wasn't like the only person, only colored man owning land in that area. We got a Jerry Hoskins, we got a Mr. Holderness. This is gonna show Jesse Hoskins right here, and this has been colored. And if I go over a page, it'll show what all he had. And anytime you see this X, we dealing with colored individuals. So you got a Peter Lackey, you got a Robert Bell, you got a Washington, you got Copland. So there were other colored individuals around that time frame as buying land and they owning land. And this is going to speak on a Reconstruction period that was going on around that time. And black people were trying to do things. They were trying to have things. So it wasn't necessarily just straight-handed and giving over. Some of these people that was purchasing land in this area, and all these are going to be colored individuals. That own land in the time period. And this is going to be Hopkins County. And we're going to be in... All right, we're going to be in 1867. All right. And Jerry Hoskins is found in the Holiness census. They're in the same household, stuff like that. I ain't going to show y'all right there. Y'all click on it if we get a chance. If y'all ever want the link or something like that, if you get a chance to. This is a long video, man. And then we ain't gonna go through all the newspaper clippings. I did look into newspaper clippings. I was doing all the work that I could. We have a very prominent family that was farmers. A lot of preachers and pastors. They doing some donation work. I think this is George Wynn Jr. He was doing very good work in the neighborhood. They was very kind of feeding the community because they was holding classes and things like that, teaching people how to farm. And even we got George W. Pryor or Pastor Pryor or what we call Uncle GW in some of these newspapers. And it sounded like he was going to be a farmer at first. It sounded like they was grooming him to farm, but it was also a lot of preaching going on there. So it's very easy for him to pick that up as well from the family. Say, man, this is a long video. I'm going to end it right here. I'm going to say this. Hungry, tired, thirsty, and everything. So that's where. So now next time if I'm speaking, I say, man, have you ever heard of a David Wynn? And when I got to asking my family, calling my family about this, it's because I had done all this research and I come to a point to where that's all I could possibly do from just documents. Now, what's the word of mouth? Who is David Wynn? Who is George Stribling? Have y'all ever heard of a? Who was George Wynn, mama and daddy? Who was that for sure? Do we know for sure? I always heard this. I heard this. I heard that. Y'all ever heard of David Wynn? No, I never heard no David Wynn. Mind you, I never showed anything on here today that could say who George Wynn's mama and daddy actually is. I kind of found who Orange Wynn mama could have been, and who daddy could have been. But George Wynn's, he could very well, daddy could be, white, mama could be black. I need to put a picture of him on here. But it's not about that. We're trying to figure out where we got that land from. And it would seem that he would have got that land from his granddad. If we're going to use David Wynn, if we're going to say, all right, that will sounds about right. That's an old will. That's 18-something. This is old information that we're looking at. And I'm thinking to myself, I done went in there and dusted off this old book. And I'm thinking, he wrote this back in the 1800s. Here I am. This is February. This is August 2023 right now. August 2003. I'm DeJuan Wooten. I am 35 years old at the time, right now. So, how many years is that? We go back to 1859 is when he touched down. 1879 is when he would have passed. Well, I think 1869 is around where he would have bought that land in 2023. We're 100 and my math, I'm not good doing math right now, but what we 160, 18, 30. I don't got no pen or pad. I need a calculator to do it. Let's do the calculator then. So y'all do the calculator if you're looking at it. Just know it's a lot of time that I went by. And that's what made me want to record this, because what if this go back 100 years from now? And then we will have a rare family that could actually go back and really link this stuff. And let's just say that this man did buy this land way back then and deeded it to his grandkids. And let's say he did all this. That's a man coming from Tennessee. You taking all this journey. You get out there, drop them racks, buy some land, start trying to build and work your whole life, and then you pass it down to somebody, and then somewhere somebody just write a book that says, oh, he got this land from his half-black Indian woman, slave owner. And then from there, boom, for generations now, everything you did is just being, somebody used the power of the pen, and it's now forgotten. Credit is given to somebody that might not even, you see what I'm saying, existed at the time. Maybe he did exist, but if he didn't exist, wouldn't that be a shame? This would be about David Wynn. This a man, I'm thinking about myself. Just like me, if I don't work my whole life doing something and I try to pass it on, and let's say we still got it to this day. This is about him. This ain't about bashing anybody. This ain't about trying to take away from anything. But if this guy is the guy that did this and deeded this land over to what we still have today, and it helped the inception of what we call Birch Creek, then this guy needs some credit. That's some work done. You see what I'm saying? We supposed to hold on to that. You know what I mean? And build on to that. Because this wouldn't just affect me. This affect really possibly hundreds of people. You know what I mean? Hundreds of cousins and things like that. Shoot, David Wynn would have helped put on for the Striplings, would have helped put on for the Wrights, would have helped put on for the Pryors and the Wynns. Because George Pryor, Papa Claude, he gets some of this land and then he turned it into even more. And then it's growing and growing and growing. And here we are today. I'm kind of far removed. I'm from Dallas, right? But my roots go to East Texas. My roots go to Birch Creek still. So it's a long video. That's what this is for. So when I'm talking to somebody next time and they say, well, where you get this? Why you think that? When I'm talking to you, it's going to be a 5-minute conversation. But I can point somebody to go look at the video why I say what I think. So you know that, no, I ain't just pull this out of nowhere. I spent a lot of time on trying to put this information together, so it makes sense. And there's still a lot more work to be done. So that's it. Hey, family, love y'all. We got to keep things going, grow more and more. And we'll do it like that. Hey, I'm proud of our family. I'm proud of Birch Creek. I ain't find nothing bad. I ain't found nothing but things that we should be proud of, whatever the case might be. So there you go. I'm ended here.